I'm going to talk about adolescent health. Adolescence is a stage that is characterized by the transition between childhood and adulthood, which implies physical, cognitive, and psychosocial changes. This stage occurs approximately between the ages of 11 and 19 years, while puberty is the period in which a person develops sexual maturity and reproductive capacity, which may have its onset before the age of 10 years. The first physical changes of sexual maturity are chronological present for opening the way for the development of other spheres of life. It is essential to recognize and address the health needs of the adolescents. The adolescent is no longer the same as when he was a child. Now he faces different needs, and those needs make him feel as if he were between two worlds. In general terms, adolescents are considered healthy people because physically their body has the strength to resist diseases even better than young children and older adults. However, the adolescent sees himself in the middle of many changes that affect him in a significant way. These changes are physical, psychological, and social. They are closely associated with puberty. Are they hormonal ones? The adrenal gland begins to secrete high levels of androgens which influence the growth of pubic, armpit, and facial hair, as well as the physical growth and the increase of amount of fat in the skin caused body odor. That adds to the maturation of the sexual organs, such as the growth of the female genitalia, the development of breast in women, and in the man, the growth of genitals and increased muscle mass and growth of facial hair. Due to the hormonal changes that contrast with the importance that the teenagers give to the physical appearance.
Well, another factor to highlight is the cognitive maturity. But to know what it is, we first need to know what does the word cognition means. Well, cognition is the set of process or mental structures related to the awareness and the knowledge. This may help us represent about and to understand the cognitive maturity. This function divided into the hypothetical deductive reasoning. So it is possible to make an hypothesis and also to make an experiment. With this, we can test the relationships and try them in a systematically way. And in here, we are going to discard the things that are false, and we are going to get and conclude the thing that is true. From the social perspective, the adoption of values and development of the identity has to do a lot of in the adolescence. After childhood, when the adolescent have cognitive maturity, he has the ability to reason better about social issues like morality and development, and he also develops altruism and the empathy. And there they can already hear different opinions, and they will take it better than when they were only a child. Identity is a characteristic from the adolescence that when he already have notion of himself and he already had goals, autonomy and initiative, which help in the adulthood to be a leader. But if the adolescent doesn't show this change and the adolescent doesn't have his maturation complete, he could have risks of illness.
Everything in our body is finely regulated by mechanisms that allow us to maintain homeostasis and therefore health. On the other hand, disease is the loss of balance and homeostasis. Health is an issue of worldwide concern because it's the ideal state that all people want to achieve. According to the Real Academia Española, health is the state in which the organic being executes normally all his functions. It is the physical condition in which an organism has on a certain moment. It is freedom or a public or private good of each. It is possible to identify an illness when the symptoms of a process appear and breaks down the balance of an organism. Sometimes it leads to minor health or, in some cases, the loss of life. From a psychological perspective, health is measured based on normal behaviors, those behaviors that do not interfere with the development of the person in the different areas of his life. Disease, on the other hand, is related to abnormal behaviors that help explore the emotional disturbances of a person. Another definition of health is the spiritual one. According to that, health is described as the state in which the beliefs of a particular person or people are constitutive elements of their existence, and of the concept of happiness in which each one wants to believe or follow. Currently, health is affected by industrialization, automation, and acceleration of the pace of life. The human being becomes the leading actor in regards to this health. With the development of science, and in order to understand the role of human being in this health, it was possible to point out the factors that influence the preservation of health or the appearance of the illness. These factors include the public health actions, the care of the environment, human genetics, and the lifestyle.
Risk factors in adolescence and prevention measures. Circumstances or events that could affect health are experienced at every stage of the life. In adolescence, you have a major body in its generality, but the changes you face, both at the hormonal level as well as physiological and social levels, involve particular risks, so it is essential to identify them. The term factor is in general the influential magnitude and the determinant. There are different types of factors: the inertias of maintenance, triggers, facilitators, and risk factors. The booster factors are the ones to which a person is constantly exposed and can aggravate their situation. For example, the constant exposed to solvents. The triggers are any characteristic or circumstance that triggers a disease or event. It can be a risk factor that acts as a trigger. This will generate a health problem to the person exposed to it. For example, the death of a loved one. Facilitating factors are those that open a way to the onset of a disease. For example, to live in a permissible environment for the consumption of harmful substances. Finally, the predisposing factors are generators of sensitivities towards an agent that can cause a disease. For example, the fact that a mother had consumed substances during pregnancy. A risk factor endangers the balance between the factors that intervene in health, as the biological, physiological, and social processes. In that way, a risk factor can cause illness and even death to the person. Causes of a risk factor can be biological, environmental, behavioral, sociocultural, and economic. Behavioral risks are related to the actions that a person chooses to carry out. Some examples of risk factors are consumption of harmful substances, eating junk, physical inactivity, spending much time sitting, exposing to the sun without protection for a long time, not applying the necessary vaccine, or having unprotected. Physiological risk factors are the ones that involve the body and biology of the person, that are related to genetic factors: overweight, obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or a deficient metabolism of the alcohol in the body.
Of the risk behaviors and exhibition in certain situations with many alternatives of choices. It is essential to analyze specific cases and triggers, facilitators, predisposing factors, and boosting factors in order to prevent more severe consequences. In adolescence, risk behaviors are often due to immunity, neuronal, as well as individual search of the identity with that teenager faces. These behaviors can cause injuries, illnesses, disabilities, and even death. This tendency in adolescents to add risk to their behaviors is related to three groups of factors. Number one is personal, like personal history, though it results conflicting situations, the own neurobiology, and the use of defense mechanisms against particular situations. Precipitators, the subjective perception of their own experiences, their ability to deal with those experiences, their ability and cognitive flexibility to solve problems. And the third one is the contextual, the existence of support neurons or the lack of them. The level of ego integration, the ability to differentiate the real from the imaginary and to process the information correctly. The relationship between risk factors and disease will depend on many parameters, as individual risk, the relative, the attributable, and the etiological fraction of the risk. The individual risk is the difference between the disease frequency among the subjects exposed to a probable causal factor and the frequency among those exposed. Relative risk is the probability that an individual or a group of people with epidemiological characteristics in a particular place and time contract a disease. The attributable risk forms part of the individual risk, which can be relatable to particular factors specifically. Finally, the etiological fraction of a risk of the proportional of the risk of a group, which is related exclusively to a given factor. Among the behaviors that promote health are the regular physical activity, control alcohol, tobacco, and other substances consumption, if applicable. There are as well the protective factors, which support human development, as well as the maintenance or recovery of health. Their function is to counteract the effects of risk factors and reduce the vulnerability of the individual under particular circumstances. These factors can be of broad spectrum due to their higher efficiency to prevent any damage. For instance, having a family that serves as a containment, excellent interpersonal communication with the family, adequate self-esteem, and impulse control.